Hello everyone and welcome to the second round of the Fischer Taimanov candidates match from 1971, Vancouver, Canada. So in this chess game, Bobby Fischer this time had the white pieces. In the first game, he had the black pieces and he defeated Taimanov, and Fischer was leading 1-0 at this moment of the match. So Taimanov had the black pieces. So let's see what happened in this chess game in the second game. But the second game was such a long game actually, and I will try to skip the opening and the middle game as fast as it is possible. And also this game was adjourned for two times because it was too long. It was a hard-fought battle and it was exhausting for both chess players. So okay, let's see what happened. Bobby Fischer starts the game with e4 and we have c5, knight to f3, knight to c6 and then d4. So this is the Sicilian defense. Taimanov variation, e6, knight to b5, d6, and we have standard moves. This is theory, checking the king and then knight takes on e4. Okay, black is a pawn up but white has activity. So how to defend on c7? So attacking on c7, and actually this is the only defending with the king, and this is losing the castling rights. But black is a pawn up, so pluses and minuses. And Bobby Fischer is simply developing the knight, exchanging the knights, and then king to d8. So bishop check was possible, bishop to b5, and then knight to b5, and also it looks like attacking on a7. So we have bishop to e6, developing the bishop, and Bobby Fischer castled, targeting on d6. So we have b6 and then f4, a very strong move. So capturing the pawn with the knight, knight takes on d6, bishop takes, rook takes on d6 is possible in this position. But Fischer played f4 and engine says this is the best move. So pawn takes pawn is the threat. And we have e takes on f4, but I told you that I was going to skip the middle game much as fast as it is possible, but just saying in this position, if something like e4, then white has this interesting tactic, knight takes on a7. So if rook takes, then bishop takes on b6, forking the king and the rook. So rook to c7, bishop takes knight, the rook is still pinned, and I think white is winning. So in this position, after f4, we have e takes on f4, bishop takes on f4, and then knight goes back and defending the d-pawn. So there is huge pressure, 3 attackers to the d-pawn. White is a pawn down, but it looks like white is going to get the compensation back very soon. So bishop to e2, planning to play bishop to f3, probably. So bishop to d7, attacking the knight. And then Fischer wants to double the rooks, and there is going to be huge pressure. So bishop to e7, doubling the rooks and eliminating one of the attackers. Bishop takes on b5 and king to c7, attacking the bishop, doubling the rooks and placing the rook in the semi-open file. And then rook over, defending the f-pawn, b4, a5, bishop to d5. So bishop takes knight, king takes bishop, and then bishop takes pawn is possible. So king to b8 and then a3, defending the b-pawn. So we have rook over, and okay, in this position, Bobby Fischer could capture the knight. After king takes bishop, bishop takes pawn is maybe possible. So Taimanov decided to defend this pawn maybe. So, but this is leaving the f-pawn, bishop takes on f7, and then bishop to c3, bishop goes back, and then d5. Rook over and then d4. Bishop takes on c3, rook takes on c3, so we are simplifying the game and then pushing the pawn, capturing the rook, and then rook to e1 by Bobby Fischer, the only move that doesn't lose. So, would you like to see something funny? Rook takes rook would be the blunder of the century. That's check, and then knight takes rook, and that's double threat, attacking the bishop and promoting the queen is the threat. So if defending that, then knight takes bishop. Of course, this didn't happen. Bobby Fischer was not born yesterday, but actually, Bobby Fischer made an unbelievable blunder against Boris Spassky in Reykjavik in 1972 in the World Chess Championship match. You know what I'm talking about. His bishop got trapped in that game. It happens even to some geniuses. But of course, Fischer didn't capture the rook, and he played rook to e1, the only move that doesn't lose, and attacking the pawn. And actually, white is going to get one extra pawn. So how to defend this? So we have knight to d6, bishop to h5, attacking the pawn, and then checking the king and defending the a pawn. So a takes on b4, capturing the pawn, rook up, what else? Defending, and then rook over, the only move that doesn't lose. Defending the bishop and attacking the knight, so there is no time for rook takes on h2, and then defending the knight, attacking the knight again, king to c7 defending, and only then Bobby Fischer is defending his h-pawn, h3, rook to f4, and then, well, Fischer wants to simplify the game, and Taimanov didn't want to simplify the game, so he played rook to e4, which is logical, but actually even if simplifying the game after bishop takes, okay, white is a pawn up, but drawing this game is possible. Actually, it is not going to be easy endgame for winning. But white is a pawn up, and white would have the bishop against the knight, and the bishop can dominate the knight in the endgame, potentially. So we have rook over, and then bishop to d3, and rook to e5. If capturing the pawn, I think rook to e2 check, forking the king and the pawn. So this is why we have rook to f2, and now Fischer is threatening to capture the pawn, and that is winning, of course. So white would be 2 pawns up and defending, and then pawn up. A very good move. So rook over, and then king to c3, getting in with the king, and winning this endgame is actually not that easy. King to d4, and then checking the king, and then pushing the pawn. So Bobby Fischer is creating a pass pawn. So knight goes back, and then rook to a2, knight to c7, and bishop to c4 by Bobby Fischer. King to d7, so black is also fighting with his king. Rook to b2, and we have king to c6, and checking the king, and then king goes back, and then rook to d6 is possible, but then leaving this pawn, as you can see, this pawn might fall, so it would be difficult to defend that pawn. So we have bishop to b3, but also it looks like it is difficult to defend the c pawn. So Taimanov is checking the king, and then after king goes back, black simply captures the pawn. In this position, of course, if king over to c4, then rook takes on c5 is possible. So we have king to e3, and then king takes on c5, and Bobby Fischer is losing his one pawn advantage, one extra pawn advantage. So the game continued, king to f4, and then it looks very drawish actually. So h4, and indeed it is drawish. So we have rook to h6, king to g5, knight to d6, bishop to c2, knight check, and let's skip these moves faster. So checking the king, this is still not the critical moment. So attacking the knight, pushing the pawn, and okay, Bobby Fischer is getting one more pawn, but after checking the king, white is only a pawn up, and with accurate play, black can actually survive and draw this. Technically that is possible. So defending the bishop, and then rook back, and how to win actually, it is not that easy. But Bobby Fischer is fighting until the last resources. So this is one of the trails, one of the personal trails of Bobby Fischer. He was such a fighter, and he was fighting until the end. So that's why defeating Bobby Fischer was not that easy. King to d5, and then rook over, knight back, and in this position, actually, black can even capture the bishop, capturing back with the pawn, and then even in that position, when white has one extra pawn, if black can defend accurately, black can actually survive this. That is possible. So we have rook over, and then king up. So Taimanov didn't want to capture the bishop, of course. That is very risky at the same time. So rook to g7, king to f5, checking the king, and we are reaching to the critical moment of this chess game. So Bobby Fischer decided to block with the rook and simplify the game. So in this position, Taimanov captured the rook, and then after king takes rook, this is the critical moment of this chess game. So black has to find the best move in this position. This is a very important moment. So this was such an exhausting chess game, as you can see. And unfortunately, Mark Taimanov couldn't find the best move. His move looked like an innocent move at first, but unfortunately that move was losing on the spot. So of course knight takes bishop is not possible. White is going to create a passed pawn, and that is winning. In this position, Taimanov played king to e4, and this was a blunder of epic proportions. So let me show you which move was not losing. King to d6 should have been considered, but I will get back to there later. In the real chess game, after king takes on f6, we have king to e4, and this is losing on the spot, but only if white can find the most accurate move. The only move, actually, technically, one and only move that wins on the spot, and computer engine gives white +7 or 8 points advantage after that move. And guess what? Bobby Fischer found that move on the spot. He played bishop to c8, and this is losing the only move that doesn't lose, that wins this chess game. Interesting. So after the game, Taimanov said that he felt like he was playing, he said he had the terrible feeling of playing against a machine that doesn't make any mistakes. That's what he said about Bobby Fischer. So in this position, actually good luck defending this passed h-pawn, and it is not easy. Black is in big trouble right now. So we have king to f4 by Mark Taimanov. But actually black needs to place his knight to f3, and after knight to f3, black is going to be able to defend, but not in this case because Taimanov played king to e4. So if knight to f3, it doesn't work because of this nasty skewer. So after moving the king, bishop takes knight, king takes on f3, and then king to g5. If pushing the pawn, king to g4, and that would be a blunder. So first king to g5, and then pushing the pawn, and king to g5, because if pushing the pawn, king to f7. So king to g6, king to e5, and then white is promoting a queen. So unbelievable. This was unbelievable because of king to e4, bishop to c8 is possible, and if knight goes back, bishop check, skewer, and capturing the knight, and then pushing the pawn, queen is possible. So that is one of the first things that you have to see about why this move was a blunder. So bishop to c8, and we have king to f4. I will get back to king to d6 and why that move was the most accurate move, but it is already quite complicated, so let's continue. h4 by Bobby Fischer, knight to f3, and how to stop this pawn, h5, and then knight to g5, and Bobby Fischer played the best move again, and that was an incredible move, a very beautiful move. He played bishop to f5, and this is one of the most beautiful examples of the zugzwang position at chess. So this is zugzwang, and one of the textbook examples of the zugzwang, actually a very obvious zugzwang. So if moving the king, capturing the knight, if moving the knight, pushing the pawn, or capturing the knight, depends where knight goes. So if you are going to teach the zugzwang position to someone who doesn't play chess, who is a beginner, just show this position to them. I mean, this is just a typical example, a very typical textbook example of the zugzwang. So this is reasonable, but Taimanov played knight to f3, and then h6, knight to g5, so hoping to defend after pushing the pawn, knight takes, but Fischer played king to g6, and he points out to Taimanov that this is zugzwang for the second time. This is zugzwang again. He reminds him how this position is zugzwang 100%. So if moving the king, capturing the knight, if moving the knight, capturing the knight, or if knight goes back, pushing the pawn, queen. Unbelievable. But Taimanov still haven't resigned. He played knight to f3 and then h7, checking the king, king to f6, and after this move, Mark Taimanov resigned. What a shocker for Taimanov. And guess what? After this chess game, Taimanov got hospitalized. If I can talk, it would be great. After this chess game, Mr. Taimanov got hospitalized. He felt ill and he went to the hospital because of having high blood pressure. And he stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So he felt ill after this chess game, and I'm sure with his Soviet team, and one of the important members of his Soviet team was Mikhail Botvinnik, the former world chess champion, and they came to Taimanov with huge documents of the chess games of Bobby Fischer, and they analyzed endless of variations, and Taimanov had to memorize all of them, and that also made things much more complicated for him. So he was so stressful, and after this, of course, he wanted to defeat Bobby Fischer so badly, but after this, after realizing that horrible blunder, I mean, it was such a shocker, a psychological impact on Taimanov. And yeah, I mean, we can say that Bobby Fischer simply destroyed, I mean, he broke Taimanov mentally and psychologically. So, unbelievable. Taimanov stayed at the hospital for 3 days after this chess game. I mean, it's just crazy. So the possible continuation, some move and capturing the knight and then promoting the queen. Okay, so let's get back to the critical moment of this chess game. After capturing the rook, we know that king to e4 is losing because of bishop to c8. But in this position, king to d6 is the drawing move. Not winning, but black can draw this very easily, actually. Because of after bishop to c8, now knight to f3 is possible, and if attacking the knight with the bishop, so there is no skewer, we have knight to h4, and this is a cool variation. So actually pushing this pawn and promoting the queen is not easy. So if king to g5, then we have king to e6, capturing the knight, and then king to e7, and the black king is reaching to the corner just on time. So white needs dark square bishop, actually. So in this position, it doesn't work, actually, and this is stalemate. I mean, this is just game over. Stalemate, and black is surviving. So this is just one variation. This is just one possibility. There are so many of them, so it's very complicated. So I'm not going to show endless variations, but if we check out what happens if bishop to c8, possibly. If bishop to d1, then knight to d7, checking the king, and king to e7, and if h4, then knight to f6, and black can stay with his knight on f6 very easily, and you can push this pawn and promote to a queen. And this is also one of the possibilities, one of the possible variations after king to d6. So unbelievable, but Taimanov didn't see that, and he played king to e4, and he is running into the skewer if knight goes to the correct square for defending. So this is what happened. Let's quickly check this out again. And this is zugzwang, a textbook example of zugzwang position at chess, and one of the most beautiful examples, and also one of the most obvious examples. So just show this position to someone who doesn't understand zugzwang. I mean, this is just very typical, okay? Well, Taimanov resigned in this position. So Bobby Fischer broke Taimanov after this chess game, and he is leading right now 2-0. Okay, this video was very long, but there is a lot of story behind this chess game, and also the game is a monster chess game, a very long, massive chess game. So it was like 85 moves or something, and I also showed, 89 moves. And I also showed many different variations and continuations. So okay, a 20-minute video, but I hope that the other videos are going to be shorter in this match. So Thank you very much for watching. Fischer is leading 2-0. So I hope to see you next time with the third game in this candidate match. Stay safe, take care, and bye bye.